Knecht. Is that how you say it?
That is.
It's Knecht. And I know that there was a bio that should have been here. Oh, here it is. All right, good. I'm ruthlessly efficient. Okay. Reverend Kat Knecht is an ordained interfaith and unity minister. She delivers her message on the power of love and how it works in everyday life in her book, The Soul Search. Kat works as a spiritual life and business coach and teaches at the Coaches Training Institute. Kat specializes in helping spiritual women leaders find success on their own terms. Kat and her husband Curtis travel throughout the country giving inspirational talks and presenting their workshop, Manifesting on a Spiritual Path. So let's give a warm welcome to
Out of my way just a little bit. Well, hello. Hi. I am so happy to be here. I am so happy that you are all here today. Are you ready to up your manifesting mojo? Maybe just a little bit today. Good, because that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the spiritual practice of manifesting, and we're going to unpack it and explore it a little bit today. We're going to be looking at many aspects of this practice, and I want to start with making it clear right from the get-go that manifesting and being on a spiritual path, in general, it's not a bypass, right? It's a path. It's not a bypass of life's challenges. The big ones that many here in this room, I know including myself, have faced in this community lately, the little ones, the everyday challenges, they are part of our spiritual path. And manifesting gives you a way to face the wonderful things and the challenges with an open heart, no matter what the circumstances are. Co-creating something good for yourself and for the world. Manifesting requires something positive that you engage with. So I love the reading, the Catherine Ponder reading, really resonates with me, because it really is about coming from that place of love. And that's what makes mastering this art really worthwhile. And we can manifest for ourselves. Often that's how we think about manifesting. But manifesting also works like a prayer, where you put positive thought and energy on something that you want to make happen in the world. I know we all have some of those thoughts, right, about wanting to make something positive happen in the world. So why is manifesting considered a spiritual practice? I think that author and spiritual teacher Wayne Dyer says it really, really well. This is a direct quote from him. The Creator planted within every creature a fragment of itself, a spark, a spirit of the same nature as itself. And thanks to this spirit, every creature can become a creator. And this means that instead of always waiting for their needs to be satisfied by some external force, human beings can work inwardly by means of their thought, their will, and their spirit to obtain the nourishing, healing elements they need. This is why the teaching I bring you is of the spirit of the Creator, not of matter. I think that's another really important part to remember when it comes to manifesting. It's not about matter. It's about being a creator. That's really at the soul, to really be in your highest manifesting energy. You need to feel good feelings, like appreciation, like gratitude, like love. I believe we are meant to be the co-creators of our life, and the more intentional, the better. And this song that we just sang, I just loved, there was one of the refrains about being whole. We are whole. So here's another, I'm going to kind of keep saying, here's where we often go off course with manifesting, and here's where we stay on the path, because we can come to manifesting thinking that you need something, that there's something missing, that there's somehow you are not enough. And yet how manifesting really works if you want to create exactly what you want for yourself or in this world. You come whole, knowing that you are supported, knowing that you are loved. You bring your wholeness. You bring your love. And it's not about getting something. It's about generating. This is what Catherine Ponder also said. It's about generating. You are each a loving generator. So that's the mantra I want you to have in your head when you think about manifesting. It's not about getting, it's about generating. And can you feel the difference? Because getting kind of has a graspy feel to it. We're generating. We give, we receive. It feels good. And though it's about generating love and generating from that source, it's also about attracting things. It is. It's also that it includes attracting people. It includes attracting experiences, increasing your levels of joy and your income, finding a soulmate, and maybe even that perfect pair of earrings. It goes right down to that level, right? Yeah. So today we're going to have story time. How many of you remember kindergarten? How many people remember kindergarten? Right? It's been a while for most of us, right? But see, in kindergarten, we learned how to pretend. We learned how to pretend, and it was about art, and it was about practicing simple exercises, and it was about stories. And most of the stories in kindergarten were teaching stories, and I have some teaching stories for you today. The first story I'm going to tell in two ways. Does anyone remember the movie Sliding Doors? It was maybe 20, 25 years ago. Gwyneth Paltrow, right? She was started. And so this movie, the premise was, Gwyneth Paltrow was at the subway station, and in one way the movie went, she got onto the subway, and the subway car, and the doors closed. And the storyline went in a different direction when the subway doors closed, and she did not get onto the subway. So settle in to listen to a simple little story that I'm going to tell, it going in two different ways. And this is a story about a little boy and his mother and some cookies. The story begins with a 5-year-old boy named Johnny. And in this story, Johnny represents people. So Johnny represents you and I. And his mother is God, the universe, that loving source that we co-create with. Johnny was sitting outside under a beautiful summer sky one morning in June. His mother was a doctor, and she was often working, but she was home on this morning, and he could hear her humming through the window of their home. Johnny was feeling deep appreciation for his mom. He was thinking how wonderful she was, how she would read to him, and she would take him to the museum, and she would make him the most fabulous peanut butter cookies. Oh man, did he love those cookies. At this very moment, his mother was having similar thoughts. She was thinking, what a great boy Johnny is. And since I'm off work for a couple of days, I can get to those things I need to do later. I'm going to make Johnny his favorite cookies. She started humming as she pulled out the ingredients and the mixing bowl. She could just imagine how delighted Johnny was going to be, how surprised when she served him those cookies and milk. Flashback, the scene outside. Johnny is feeling so good about his mom, all she does, and he's appreciating those cookies. He gets so filled with joy that he begins picking her some flowers in the field next door. He goes a little crazy with this, and before he knows it, he has a great big bouquet. It's a little haphazard, but he thinks it's beautiful. Right at this moment, his mom is taking the first tray of cookies out of the oven. Can you smell those cookies? Oh man, and she places them on a tray on the sideboard to cool, and right at that moment, Johnny walks in the door and says, "I love you, Mom, and these flowers are for you." His mom smiles, this smile as big as Texas, and she points to the cookies. Johnny can't believe his good fortune, and he gives that little woo of joy. You feel that joy, that little boy and the mom, just the love. That's the generation, right? We're generating. So now, I'm going to tell the story a little bit differently. Just like the sliding door movie metaphor. It's the same story. It's happening at the exact same time, so I want to take you back to the moment, the beginning of the story. The mom, the boy has missed his mom. He's really glad she's home, and he's thinking how much he loves her. And it's been a long time since he's had those peanut butter cookies. And at this moment, his mom gets the idea to make her little boy a batch of cookies. She starts to hum, and she's imagining his delight. But at this moment, the boy's thinking goes down a different train of thought. He thinks it's kind of pathetic and sad that it's been so long since he's had those cookies. He thinks that he should have had more cookies in his life, and he thinks it's just not fair. And he thinks that if only he had had more cookies, he would be a happier boy. Have any of you ever felt that way? If only I had more cookies, more money, more love, more time. Then he goes on to thinking, maybe I haven't been a good enough boy. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Then he thinks, maybe my mom doesn't care about me. Maybe it's her fault. He bets his friend's mom make them cookies all the time. If only he could have more cookies. Now, at this point, in the kitchen, his mom is just getting ready to pull those cookies out of the oven. But Johnny has worked himself up into a frenzy. He starts ripping dandelions out of the field next to his house. He's now so upset. He storms into the house. He's yelling and whining about how he never gets what he wants. And his mom is so mean and never thinks about him. You get the picture? Anybody ever witnessed something like that? His mom stops what she's doing, and she looks at the state that Johnny is in. She realizes this is not the time for a treat. So she takes Johnny into his room and lovingly but firmly tells him he needs some time out to calm down. She returns to the kitchen and puts the cookies in the fridge, waiting for when Johnny is in a better frame of mind. Do you suppose that sometimes some of your cookies might be in the universe's refrigerator, just waiting for you to finish your time out and to come back to who you really are? Right? That loving source is always calling us back to who we really are. So I want to break down the story a little bit and look at the spiritual lesson of manifesting. So as with Johnny, manifesting begins with an idea, right? We have ideas about things that we want. And it grows, things we like, things that bring us joy. And as it grows, we add to those feelings with imagination. In the first version of the story, Johnny was feeling love. He was feeling gratitude and delight. He was imagining those cookies and how wonderful they were. He was appreciating all of the times he had eaten those cookies. He was remembering how good his mother was to him. And in that place, he got into joy. he automatically, was picking those flowers and wanting to express love. And his mom, who was Source, as God represented in the story, she was responding. She was picking up the cues, cookies, serve them, delight, joy. That's how it goes in manifesting. It's really as simple as that. And it can be really challenging because in the second story, though Johnny starts in the same place, so he has an idea, cookies, and this time though he started feeling needy, desperate. He started feeling that lack. Our minds can take us to those places pretty easily when there's actually something we want, when there's something that brings us joy. And then the mind just starts going, right? We get more and more disconnected from who we really are, from our heart, from God. And we start thinking, there's something I don't have. There's something I need. There's something, oh my gosh, and somebody's to blame. And this is why I'm not happy. And if only, we start comparing, other people have more cookies than I do. The really good news, though, here about manifesting, this is truly my belief about how it works, is that Source responds lovingly. It's not a punishment. It's natural consequence. When we go down that path of lack, for the universe to give us a time out. Give us a time out. It's loving. Until we come back to ourselves. Because manifesting is about creating, co-creating that which we love, that which brings us joy. So we need to actually be in our higher selves, be present to ourselves in order to manifest what we want. The loving Source responds to what we put out. Here's a quote from the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu. He's the founder of Taoism. You probably all know this. Give a man a fish, and you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. So manifesting is like that. It actually, to work consistently in your life, it requires that you learn and make it a habit so that you can feed yourself for a lifetime. That's what manifesting really is. It's about feeding ourselves for a lifetime, always knowing we can and we have already everything we could ever want or need. In my book, The Soul Search, I tell a story I call the greatest manifesting story ever told because it depicts this exact habit that I took on of manifesting. And I call it the greatest story ever told because in the story I tell about how it keeps going. It's not that what happens is so grand, it's that I learned it keeps going. If you make manifesting a habit of keeping your thoughts on track, of catching when you're off track, like Johnny got, it becomes a habit. It's like there's a snowball, it just gets rolling. Things keep going, and good things keep happening, one right after the other. So, to get people started today, we are going to have a workshop right after this service, or after the refreshments. And also, we do a thing called a 21-day journey, my husband and I, where we with an email, we encourage people to take 21 days to just focus on something that they want, to get this habit going, because sometimes we forget. We need a little encouragement. But any way you decide to do this, because you can do it on your own, I've done that also. It's really important that you start with something simple and small that delights you. This is the key. Start with something small that delights you, because otherwise you might start with something big, and maybe it's something fabulous, but it's really easy to get disappointed because you don't see it happening as soon as you want to, and then you give up, and you just think, well, that just doesn't work for me. Here are two small examples of how manifesting works when you start small and focus on what delights you. So there was a woman in my coaching group, I'm going to call her Alice. She wanted to manifest some things in her life. She really wanted to transform her work, and she wanted to feel more joy. Those were her two goals. So she decided she would do this by focusing on really small things that delighted her. One of the first things she noticed was her home. She loved her home. And she thought, well, I would love to give this home a fresh coat of paint. That would really be delightful. But then her thoughts started going down that other path. I don't know a painter, I don't know how to do it. But she caught herself. This is important in manifesting. She caught herself. She came back to herself. She connected to Source. She stopped stressing out. A few days later, she was at the grocery store. And she ran into another car. She was in the cereal aisle, and she got into a conversation with the owner of the other car about how narrow the aisles were. And it was very, very lovely chat, and then they went their separate ways. And a couple of seconds later, this man came right back around the corner. This is a true story. He handed her a business card, and he said, "Oh, by the way, I'm a house painter, if you ever need to have your house painted." Right? How many of you have ever had that kind of thing happen? It happens all the time when we focus. This would be delightful. So she got so excited. She thought, I want to go even smaller. What would be the smallest thing that I love that I could manifest? She said, I love coffee. I'm going to manifest a cup of coffee. And this delighted her, tickled her, because she couldn't figure out how you manifest a cup of coffee. A couple of weeks later, she was at the dentist having a couple of procedures done. And after they finished the first procedure, they told her that the machine had broken down for the second procedure. So she was going to have to come back. She was leaving, and the receptionist called her back to the desk and handed her a Starbucks coffee card. She looked down, and it took her a minute. She looked down, and she saw the cup of coffee. She had manifested a cup of coffee. And she had demonstrated to herself the basic law of spiritual manifesting. She felt good about herself. She didn't feel needy or lacking. She was delighted to think of her house getting spruced up. She was delighted to think of inviting a friend to go for a cup of coffee. Here's the next piece. She was open to receiving. She didn't have any fear or driven control. She let go and she let God. She received and she appreciated. Often we do get what we ask for, and we miss it. She could have easily just grabbed that Starbucks card and just shoved it in her wallet and gone about her day. So part of manifesting is paying attention and having gratitude and appreciation for the moments when we receive. I'm going to end here. Another way of looking at this, a friend of mine named Jeanette Moss, she did a study on manifesting hundreds of people. She polled them to see what were the common denominators between those who really felt they manifested consistently over time. And there were three common denominators. They felt worthy, and this was her term, hootless, and guided. So to end at story time, I want you to take this message in personally. I'm going to personalize these three elements of consistent manifesting. On the spiritual path, it is important to know that you are worthy of all the good things that life offers. Ask for what you want, but don't give a hoot, which means you're not attached to any particular outcome because you are guided. You are trusting in spiritual guidance, which always has your best interest at heart. Just like Johnny's mom, making you those peanut butter cookies you love and supporting you to live a life of joy.